Jack Nelson walked through the shining metal hallways of Westfield Space Academy with his eyes down. It was his third week as a transfer student, and he already knew the routine. Walk quickly, don't make eye contact, get to class early, and sit near the front where the teacher could see him. Jack was 17, small for his age with sandy brown hair that never seemed to stay combed. His mother had spent her life savings to send him to this school after his test scores caught the attention of the Academy recruiters. Westfield trained the best engineers and pilots for humanity's growing Starfleet. Getting accepted was supposed to be Jack's ticket to a better life. But 3 senior cadets had other ideas. "Well, look who it is," a deep voice called from behind. The scholarship charity case. Jack's shoulders tensed. He recognized Eric Donovan's voice immediately. Where Eric went, his 2 friends were never far behind. "Keep walking," Jack whispered to himself. "Just get to Professor Hamilton's class." The propulsion theory classroom was just 30 steps away. Jack counted each one in his head, a trick he used to stay calm. 25 steps to go. 20. 15. A hand grabbed his shoulder, spinning him around. Eric Donovan stood there, his academy uniform perfectly pressed, his blonde hair precisely cut to regulation length. Behind him, Keith Martinez and Peter Franklin formed a wall, blocking the hallway in both directions. "I'm just going to class," Jack said quietly. Keith laughed. He was the tallest of the 3 with broad shoulders and a permanent smirk. "Heard you scored perfect on yesterday's quantum field test. Made the rest of us look bad." Jack swallowed. Hard. His perfect test score had been announced by Professor Hamilton, who had praised Jack in front of everyone. Jack had seen the anger in Eric's eyes then. The sons of high-ranking Terran fleet admirals weren't used to being outshone by anyone, especially not a scholarship kid from the outer colonies. "It was just a test," Jack said. "I studied hard." "You think you're smarter than us?" Peter stepped forward. Unlike the others, Peter was lean and wiry, with quick movements that reminded Jack of a predator. "You think you belong here with us?" Jack clutched his tablet closer to his chest. On it were his notes for today's class and the special project he'd been working on for weeks. "I earned my place here just like you." Eric's face darkened. "No, not like us. Our families built this fleet. Our fathers command the ships you dream of serving on. You're here because someone felt sorry for you." The warning bell chimed overhead. 5 minutes until class. Jack glanced toward the classroom door, now blocked by Keith's large frame. "I need to get to class," Jack said, trying to step around them. Eric shoved him hard against the wall. "We need to talk about expectations first. Tomorrow's propulsion theory exam, you're going to fail it." Jack blinked in surprise. "What? Why would I?" "Because," Eric leaned in close, "if you make us look bad again, you'll regret it. Score below 70%. That's an order." Jack felt something he hadn't expected, anger rising above his fear. For 3 weeks he had endured their taunts, their accidental shoves in the hallway, their whispered threats. But this was different. They wanted him to throw away everything he had worked for. "No," Jack said, the word coming out before he could stop it. All 3 bullies froze, clearly not expecting resistance. "What did you just say?" Eric asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Jack straightened his back slightly. "I said no. I won't fail. On purpose. I earned my place here and I'm going to do my best." For a moment nobody moved. Then Eric smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that promised trouble. "Wrong answer," Eric said. He nodded to the others. "Let's help our friend understand how things work around here." Before Jack could react, Keith and Peter grabbed his arms. His tablet clattered to the floor as they dragged him down the hallway away from the classroom. Jack struggled, but the 2 older boys were much stronger. "Let me go," Jack shouted, hoping someone would hear. But this was the old wing of the academy with thick walls designed to withstand space radiation. Most classes were held in the newer sections now. They pushed through a door marked with the universal symbol for restroom. The facilities in this part of the academy were old, rarely used except by maintenance staff. The lighting was dim, and there was a lingering smell of chemicals and disuse. "Nobody will bother us here," Eric said, checking that the outer door was secured. Time to teach you about respect, colony boy. Jack fought harder as they pushed him toward one of the stalls. Don't do this, you'll get expelled. Eric laughed. My father sits on the academy board. Who do you think they'll believe? Now let's see how smart you feel after a little swim. Jack realized with horror what they planned to do. He kicked and thrashed as they forced him to his knees in front of the toilet. The bowl was disgustingly filthy, clearly having gone days without proper cleaning. Please, Jack gasped. Don't. Eric grabbed a handful of Jack's hair. Next time I tell you, to fail a test, what are you going to do? Jack closed his eyes. I won't. His face hit the water before he could finish. The cold, foul liquid filled his nose and mouth. Jack tried not to breathe, but panic took over as they held him down. His lungs burned for air. Just as spots began to appear in his vision, they pulled him up. Jack coughed and gagged, water and worse streaming down his face. Ready to be reasonable? Eric asked. Through the burning in his throat and the humiliation, Jack found his voice. Go to hell. Eric's face contorted with rage. Hold him down longer this time. The second dunking was worse. They held him under until Jack was sure he would drown. His body convulsed as he involuntarily breathed in water. When they finally let him up, he collapsed on the floor, barely conscious, covered in filth. One more time? Keith suggested, laughing. A distant sound of doors opening somewhere in the hallway made them pause. Someone's coming, Peter whispered urgently. Eric looked down at Jack with disgust. Remember this lesson? Next time will be worse. They left him there on the cold floor, gasping and retching. Jack lay there for long minutes, too weak to move. When he finally managed to sit up, he caught his reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink. His face was streaked with filth, his eyes red from the contaminated water, his uniform soaked and stained. But there was something else in his reflection, something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. A cold determination, a promise. This wasn't over. Jack slowly cleaned himself as best he could. He was late to class, his uniform still damp, his tablet cracked from being dropped. Professor Hamilton gave him a disappointed look but said nothing about his appearance or tardiness. After class, Jack reported the assault to the academy administration. He sat in the dean's office, still smelling of sewage despite his best efforts to clean up, and told the truth about what had happened. The next day, the dean called him back. The security cameras in that section had malfunctioned. It was Jack's word against 3 respected senior cadets. The bullies received a warning for excessive roughhousing, and Jack was advised to adapt better to academy culture. The message was clear. There would be no justice through official channels. That night, as Jack nursed his bruises and wounded pride, his tablet pinged with a message from an unexpected source. Dr. Linda Wells, head of the neuroscience department, wanted to see him. The message contained 2 words that would change everything. Project Ascension. Jack sat in the sterile white waiting room outside Dr. Linda Wells's office. His hands still trembled slightly from yesterday's attack. The message about Project Ascension had been mysterious, but Jack had nothing to lose. The academy administration had made it clear that they valued the bullies' admiral fathers more than justice. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Dr. Wells stood there, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her white lab coat perfectly pressed. She didn't smile, but her eyes were kind. "Come in, Cadet Nelson," she said. Jack followed her into an office lined with screens displaying brain scans and neural pathway models. Dr. Wells gestured to a chair. "Do you know why I asked to see you?" she asked. Jack shook his head. "Your message only mentioned something called Project Ascension." Dr. Wells nodded. "I've been monitoring your test scores since you arrived. They're exceptional, even by Westfield standards." She tapped a screen, bringing up Jack's academic profile. "But what interests me most is your neural plasticity scores. They're off the charts." "Neural plasticity?" Jack asked. "The brain's ability to form new connections and adapt," Dr. Wells explained. "Most people's neural pathways become relatively fixed by their late teens. Yours show an unusual capacity for growth and adaptation." She studied him carefully. "I also heard about yesterday's incident." Jack looked down at his hands. The administration didn't do anything about it. Politics, Dr. Wells said with disgust. Admiral Donovan donated the East Wing of the Academy. Admiral Martinez funds the flight simulator program. Admiral Franklin sits on the board. She leaned forward. But I don't answer to them. My department operates under direct Terran Fleet Science Division authority. She pressed a button and the room's windows darkened. On the main screen appeared the logo of the Terran Fleet Science Division, a DNA strand intertwined with a spiral galaxy. Project Ascension is classified, Dr. Wells said. It's a neural enhancement initiative designed to create the next generation of starship operators. People who can interface directly with ship systems, process complex data in seconds, and make calculations faster than any computer. Jack stared at the screen. And you think I'm a candidate for this? The best candidate I've seen, Dr. Wells confirmed. Your brain structure is uniquely suited to the enhancements. We've had some success with other subjects, but they were all at least 10 years older than you. Your youth and neural plasticity might allow for integration well beyond our current results. Jack thought about Eric, Keith, and Peter, about the toilet water filling his lungs, about the dean's dismissive attitude. What exactly would happen to me? He asked. Dr. Wells touched another screen. A series of non-invasive procedures, focused neural stimulation, nanocellular restructuring, cognitive enhancement protocols. Nothing physically damaging, though there can be side effects. Like what? Headaches, sensory sensitivity, temporary memory fluctuations. She paused. And some subjects report emotional detachment, though that typically passes with adjustment. Jack looked at her directly. Will it make me smarter? More capable? Yes, Dr. Wells said without hesitation. Significantly so. Then I want to do it, Jack said. Dr. Wells studied him for a long moment. The treatment takes 3 months. You'll need to withdraw from regular classes temporarily. We'll list it as a medical leave. I don't care, Jack said. When can we start? Dr. Wells' expression softened slightly. Most candidates need time to consider, to discuss with family. My mother is working double shifts in the colony mines to pay for what my scholarship doesn't cover, Jack said flatly. She can't help me with this, and I've already seen what happens when I try to follow the rules here. Dr. Wells nodded. We can begin tomorrow. The next morning, Jack entered the neuroscience department's restricted area. A team of technicians in white uniforms guided him to a chamber filled with advanced medical equipment. Dr. Wells supervised, as they attached sensors to his head and injected him with a clear fluid that made his veins feel cold. This first session establishes the baseline for your neural architecture, Dr. Wells explained. The real changes begin tomorrow. For the next 3 months, Jack lived in a private room in the medical section. Each day involved hours of treatments. The neural stimulation felt like electricity running through his brain, painful at first but eventually exhilarating. The nanocellular treatments gave him fevers that lasted for days, his body fighting the changes before accepting them. Between treatments, Dr. Wells gave him increasingly complex problems to solve: mathematical equations, engineering challenges, language puzzles. At first they were difficult. By the second month they seemed trivial. Your adaptation rate is unprecedented, Dr. Wells told him one evening, reviewing his latest brain scans. The trauma you experience seems to have created unique neural pathways. Your brain is using the enhancements in ways we didn't anticipate. Jack didn't tell her everything. He didn't mention that he could now see patterns everywhere, in the hospital systems, in the security protocols, in the very code that ran the academy. He didn't tell her that late at night, when the medical staff thought he was sleeping, he practiced extending his new abilities. He discovered he could connect to the academy's network with only his thoughts. At first, it was just sensing the data flows like feeling currents in a river. Then he learned to direct those currents to access files and systems without leaving any trace. Jack looked at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. He looked different now. Thinner, paler, his eyes somehow deeper. But the biggest changes were invisible. His mind worked in ways that would have been impossible to imagine before. We're nearing the end of the treatment phase, Dr. Wells said during their third month. "The final enhancements are integrating well. You should be able to return to regular classes next week." "What will the other students be told?" Jack asked. "That you had a rare immune condition requiring treatment," Dr. Wells said. "Your academic record will show independent study credits. You won't have fallen behind." Jack nodded. "And the bullies? Eric, Keith, and Peter?" Dr. Wells frowned. "Don't think about revenge, Jack. The enhancements are meant for greater purposes. Focus on your studies, on your future in the fleet." Jack gave her the smile he had practiced, the one that looked sincere. "Of course, doctor. I understand." On his last night in the medical section, Jack lay awake, his enhanced mind spinning with possibilities. The bullies thought he had run away, dropped out after their lesson. They had no idea what was coming back to Westfield Academy. As the UI clock ticked past midnight, Jack connected to the Academy's central database. With barely a thought, he accessed the secured files on the 3 senior cadets. He learned their class schedules, their performance reviews, their disciplinary records that showed multiple incidents with other students, all mysteriously resolved without serious consequences. Most importantly, he discovered that all 3 had been selected for the maiden voyage of the TSS Venture, humanity's newest deep space vessel. Despite their mediocre academic performances, they had secured the most coveted assignments in the graduating class. Their father's influence at work again. Jack smiled in the darkness. He would not seek simple revenge. What he planned was much more elegant, much more complete. Justice was coming, and it would come through the very systems that had protected his tormentors. Jack returned to his regular classes on a Monday morning. He wore the standard cadet uniform, his hair neatly trimmed according to regulations. He walked with his head down, shoulders slightly hunched, the perfect picture of someone who had been broken. It was all an act. Behind his careful mask of submission, Jack's enhanced mind was working at incredible speeds. He noticed everything. The slight pause when Professor Hamilton saw him enter the classroom, the whispers from other students, the smirks on the faces of Eric, Keith, and Peter when they spotted him. "Well, look who's back," Eric said loudly as Jack took his seat. "Heard you had some health problems. Too bad they didn't finish you off." Several students laughed nervously. Jack gave no reaction, keeping his eyes down, appearing weak and defeated. Professor Hamilton cleared his throat and began the lecture on advanced starship propulsion systems. Jack already knew everything the professor was teaching. His enhanced mind had absorbed entire textbooks during his recovery. But he carefully gave wrong answers when called upon, making simple mistakes that caused Eric and his friends to snicker with satisfaction. For 2 weeks, Jack maintained his act. He became almost invisible, a shadow moving through the academy hallways. The bullies, believing they had successfully broken his spirit, mostly ignored him. This was exactly what Jack wanted. Every night, while other cadets slept, Jack connected his mind to the academy's systems. He explored every digital corner, gathering information, placing small undetectable programs that would activate when needed. No one, not even Dr. Wells, knew the full extent of his abilities now. Jack learned that in 3 weeks, the Academy would host its annual demonstration day. Terran Fleet High Command representatives would visit to observe the graduating cadets' skills. It was a crucial event that often determined final assignments. He also discovered something disturbing. The 3 bullies were planning to sabotage several other top cadets during the flight simulator tests. They had hacked into the simulator programming, creating dangerous scenarios that would make their competitors fail spectacularly. One of their targets was Susan Rivera, a brilliant pilot from Jack's advanced navigation class. Susan was the only child of factory workers from Earth's underwater city, New Atlanta. Like Jack, she had earned her place through merit rather than connections. Jack decided it was time to make his first move. He approached Susan after class, still playing his role as the defeated scholarship student. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked quietly. Susan looked surprised but nodded. "Sure, Jack, what's up?" They walked to a quiet corner of the academy gardens. Jack checked carefully to ensure no one was listening. I know about the simulator sabotage, he said. Susan's eyes widened. What? Sabotage? Eric, Keith, and Peter have reprogrammed your simulator test for next week. When you reach the asteroid field section, the navigation controls will reverse. You'll crash and it will look like pilot error. How do you know this? Susan asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. Jack had prepared for this question. I overheard them talking in the locker room. They didn't realize I was there. Susan's face darkened with anger. Those entitled jerks. I should report them. They'll deny it, Jack said, and the simulator programming will mysteriously return to normal before anyone can check it. So what am I supposed to do? Just fail? Jack shook his head. No. When the controls reverse, compensate by doing the opposite of what feels right. If you need to go up, push down. Left, go right. It will feel wrong, but you'll make it through. Susan studied him carefully. Why are you helping me? I've barely spoken to you all year. Jack looked away. They did something to me. Something bad. I can't fight them directly, but this way, at least their plan fails. Susan put her hand on his shoulder. Thank you, Jack. And whatever they did to you, I'm sorry no one helped. Jack nodded and walked away, hiding his smile. The first piece was in place. Over the next few days, Jack approached 4 other cadets who were targeted for sabotage. He told each of them just enough to help them survive their tests, but not enough to expose his full knowledge. Each conversation ended the same way, with gratitude toward Jack and growing anger toward the 3 bullies. Meanwhile, Jack was completing his master plan. He had discovered that the Academy security system kept backups of all footage, even from cameras reported as malfunctioning. The footage of his assault existed. It had simply been buried under layers of administrative clearances. Late one night, Jack sat cross-legged on his bed, eyes closed, his mind deep in the Academy security archives. He located the buried files and copied them to a secure location only he could access. He then created a program that would broadcast this footage at exactly the right moment. Next, Jack examined the falsified academic records of Eric, Keith, and Peter. Their actual test scores were mediocre at best, but someone had altered the system to show excellence. Jack carefully documented these changes, creating a file of evidence showing years of academic fraud. Most disturbing of all, Jack found records of 6 other incidents involving the 3 bullies. 2 students had left the academy entirely after encounters with them. One had been hospitalized with accidental injuries during a training exercise supervised by Eric's father. The night before demonstration day, Jack made final preparations. His program was perfect, designed to reveal the truth in a way that couldn't be stopped or covered up. Everything was in place. As Jack lay in bed, he thought about how differently things had turned out than the bullies expected. They thought they had taught him a lesson in that dirty bathroom. They had, but not the one they intended. They had shown him that the system was corrupt, that power protected itself, that rules applied differently to those with connections. Well, Jack had connections now too, not to admirals or board members, but to something more powerful, the truth and the means to reveal it. Tomorrow, everything would change. The bullies thought they had drowned him in filth, but Jack had emerged from those waters transformed. Not broken, but reborn. As he drifted off to sleep, Jack smiled. Justice was coming, and it would be broadcast on every screen in Westfield Space Academy. Demonstration day arrived with clear skies and a sense of excitement throughout Westfield Space Academy. The campus was decorated with Terran fleet flags, and maintenance bots polished every surface until it gleamed. Cadets wore their formal uniforms, the deep blue fabric crisp and sharp. Jack blended into the background as always, but today his heart raced with anticipation. Through his neural connection, he could sense the Academy's systems humming with activity. His program was ready, waiting for the perfect moment. The great assembly hall filled with cadets, faculty, and the visiting dignitaries from Fleet High Command. Jack spotted 5 admirals in the front row, including the fathers of Eric, Keith, and Peter. Admiral Donovan, Eric's father, was speaking with the Academy Dean, both men laughing as if sharing an inside joke. Near the back of the hall, Jack saw Dr. Wells enter quietly. She noticed him and gave a small nod. She had no idea what was about to happen, but she had given him the tools to make it possible. The dean approached the podium as the clock struck 9. Welcome, honored guests and cadets, to Westfield's annual demonstration day. Jack closed his eyes briefly, connecting to his program. It was time. Before we begin the flight demonstrations, the dean continued, but his words were cut short as every screen in the assembly hall suddenly changed. The security footage from the bathroom incident filled the displays. The entire assembly watched in shocked silence as Eric, Keith, and Peter forced Jack's head into the filthy toilet, holding him under while they laughed. The audio was crystal clear, capturing their cruel words and Jack's desperate struggles. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Jack kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt a surge of satisfaction as the truth was finally revealed. The dean rushed to a control panel, frantically trying to stop the broadcast. "Technical difficulties," he stammered. "Please remain calm while we—" But the system no longer responded to his commands. Jack's program had locked everyone out. As soon as the bathroom footage ended, it was replaced by documentation of the other assaults, dates, and victim names clearly visible. Then came evidence of the simulator sabotage plans, followed by the falsified academic records. Admiral Donovan stood up, his face purple with rage. "Turn this off immediately," he shouted. The Academy's head of security was typing desperately at another control panel, but nothing worked. Jack's program was in complete control of the system. Finally, the screens showed communications between the administration and the 3 admirals, revealing the systematic cover-up of their son's actions over the years. When the evidence presentation ended, the screens returned to normal, but the damage was done. The hall erupted in chaos. Students were shouting, pointing at Eric, Keith, and Peter. The 3 bullies looked pale and terrified, their arrogant confidence shattered. Fleet Admiral Helena Chen, the highest-ranking officer present and commander of the entire Terran fleet, stood up. Her voice cut through the noise like a laser. "Silence." The hall immediately quieted. Admiral Chen's face was a mask of cold fury. "Dean Wilson, is what we just saw accurate?" The dean hesitated, looking at the 3 admiral fathers for support. Finding none, he stammered, "There are explanations, Admiral Chen. Context that—" "Is it accurate?" she repeated, her voice like ice. The dean's shoulders slumped. "Yes, Admiral. But procedures were followed for disciplinary." "Procedures?" Admiral Chen cut him off. "I saw criminal assault. I saw academic fraud. I saw conspiracy to sabotage, safety equipment." She turned to the 3 bullies. Cadets Donovan, Martinez, and Franklin stepped forward. The 3 moved to the center of the hall, their faces a mixture of fear and disbelief. "You are immediately expelled from Westfield Academy and will face criminal charges for assault and conspiracy to endanger fellow cadets." Admiral Chen's voice rang through the silent hall. "The Terran fleet stands for excellence, integrity, and service. You have demonstrated none of these qualities." She turned to the 3 admiral fathers. "Admirals Donovan, Martinez, and Franklin, report to my office tomorrow morning. We will discuss your involvement in these cover-ups and your futures in the fleet." The 3 men looked stunned, their power and influence suddenly meaningless in the face of incontrovertible evidence. Admiral Chen then addressed the dean. "This institution has failed in its most basic duty to protect students and uphold standards. There will be a full investigation, and those responsible will be removed." As the assembly broke into smaller groups of shocked discussions, Susan Rivera found Jack in the crowd. "It was you," she said quietly. "You did this." Jack gave her a small smile. "I don't know what you mean." Susan shook her head. "The simulator warnings, this exposure, no one else could have put it all together." She looked at him with new respect. "However you did it, thank you." Jack watched as security officers escorted Eric, Keith, and Peter from the hall. The 3 former cadets looked shell-shocked, their futures suddenly and irrevocably changed. Dr. Wells appeared at Jack's side. "Interesting timing," she said carefully. "Very," Jack agreed. She studied his face. "The neural enhancements were never meant for personal vengeance. This wasn't personal vengeance, Jack replied. This was justice. Not just for me, but for everyone. They hurt. Dr. Wells considered this, then nodded slowly. The projections never indicated this level of system integration capability. Your mind has taken the enhancements further than we thought possible. What happens now? Jack asked. Now? Dr. Wells smiled slightly. Now, I report to Admiral Chen about Project Ascension's first remarkable success. The next day, Westfield Academy was transformed. The dean and 3 senior administrators resigned. Admiral Chen appointed a temporary leadership team to reform the institution. Eric, Keith, and Peter faced their preliminary hearing, charged with assault and conspiracy. Without their father's protection, they looked small and ordinary in the Fai's courthouse. Nothing like the towering threats they had once seemed to Jack. Their fathers faced their own reckonings. Admiral Franklin resigned immediately. Admirals Donovan and Martinez were reassigned to remote outposts, their careers effectively. Over 1 week after demonstration day, Jack received a message from Admiral Chen's office. His academic record had been reviewed, and he was being offered special advanced placement in the Navigation Officer Training Program, the same position that had been promised to Eric Donovan. Jack accepted with a humble message of gratitude. His enhanced mind was already focusing on new challenges, new systems to master. The bullies had tried to drown him in filth, but instead, they had set him on a path to the stars. 6 months passed since the exposure of corruption at Westfield Space Academy. The institution had changed dramatically under new leadership. No longer were family connections valued over merit. A strict zero-tolerance policy against bullying was enforced. Most importantly, every cadet knew they would be judged solely on their abilities. Jack thrived in this new environment. With no need to hide his intelligence, he accelerated through the advanced navigation program. His enhanced mind absorbed complex spatial calculations as easily as others learned simple addition. His simulator scores broke all previous records. Dr. Wells continued to monitor his progress, amazed by how far beyond her expectations Jack had developed. The neural enhancements had integrated perfectly with his brain, giving him capabilities no other human possessed. Your connection to computer systems is unprecedented, she told him during one of their weekly check-ins. The other Project Ascension, participants can interface with specific programs they're trained for, but you can connect to anything electronic. Jack nodded. He didn't tell her that his abilities had grown even beyond that. He could now sense electronic systems from a distance, feeling their presence like others might feel heat or cold. The TSS Venture launches in 3 weeks, Dr. Wells said, watching him carefully. Admiral Chen has personally requested you join the crew as Junior Navigation Officer. The TSS Venture was humanity's newest and most advanced starship. Its maiden voyage would take it to the edge of explored space, a mission that would make history. The same position that was promised to Eric Donovan, Jack noted. Dr. Wells raised an eyebrow. Does that bother you? Jack considered the question. 6 months ago, taking Eric's spot would have felt like the perfect final twist in his revenge. Now he felt differently. No, he said honestly. I want the position because I'm the best person for it, not because it was once his. Dr. Wells smiled, slightly. Good answer, Admiral Chen will be pleased. 2 days before the launch, Jack visited the courthouse for the sentencing of Eric, Keith, and Peter. The trial had been straightforward with the overwhelming evidence. All 3 had been found guilty. Jack sat in the back of the courtroom, watching, as his former tormentors stood before the judge. They looked different now. Thinner, less confident. Their expensive haircuts grown out, and their tailored clothes replaced by standard-issue court attire. This court has found you guilty of assault, conspiracy to endanger fellow cadets, and academic fraud, the judge said sternly. These are serious offenses that reflect a pattern of entitled behavior and disregard for others. Eric stared at the floor. Keith seemed on the verge of tears. Peter kept looking around as if still expecting his father to appear and fix everything. In recognition of your young age and potential for rehabilitation, This court sentences you each to 3 years of community service in the Terran Fleet Engineering Corps, working on infrastructure projects in the outer colonies. Furthermore, you are permanently barred from serving as officers in the Terran Fleet. The judge looked at them over her glasses. You wanted to join the fleet through privilege rather than merit. Now you will serve the fleet by working alongside those you once looked down upon. As the three were led away, Eric glanced back and spotted Jack. For a moment, their eyes met. Jack expected to see hatred, but instead saw something that looked like understanding, perhaps even acceptance. Outside the courthouse, Jack was surprised to find Susan Rivera waiting for him. "I figured you'd be here," she said. "Closure and all, that." Susan had been assigned as pilot to the TSS venture. Over the past months, they had developed a friendship based on shared experiences and mutual respect. "How do you feel about it?" she asked as they walked toward the academy. Jack thought, for a moment. "I thought I'd feel happier, more satisfied. But they're just sad now. Broken." Jack looked up at the sky where stars were just becoming visible in the early evening. "When I planned all this, I wanted them to suffer like I suffered. Now that it's done, I realize that wasn't really what I needed." Susan nodded. "What did you need?" "I needed the truth to be known. I needed the system that protected them to change. I needed to know that what happened to me wouldn't happen to someone else." Jack smiled slightly. And all that happened. The night before the TSS venture launch, Jack stood on the observation deck of the academy, looking at the massive starship in its dock. Its hull gleamed under powerful spotlights, the most advanced vessel humans had ever built. Beautiful, isn't she? Jack turned to see Captain Olivia Garrison, the commander of the venture, standing beside him. She was a legend in the fleet, the youngest captain ever appointed to a premier vessel. "Yes, Captain," Jack agreed. "Your instructors speak very highly of you, Officer Nelson." Captain Garrison studied him with keen eyes. "They say you have an almost supernatural feel for navigation." Jack smiled modestly. "I just see patterns clearly. That's exactly what we need where we're going." She pointed to the stars. "The Cygnus Reach has spatial anomalies that have confused our best navigation systems. We need someone who can think beyond the standard algorithms." "I won't let you down, Captain," Jack promised. "I know you won't." She gave him a sharp nod and walked away. Launch day arrived with perfect weather and enormous crowds. The entire academy turned out to watch the historic event, along with thousands of citizens and media representatives. Jack, dressed in his new officer's uniform, walked up the boarding ramp with the rest of the crew. He thought about how far he had come from that terrified scholarship student who had been attacked in a dirty bathroom. As he reached his navigation station on the bridge, Jack placed his hands on the console. Immediately, he felt the ship's systems, connecting with his enhanced mind. The sensation was extraordinary, like becoming part of something vast and powerful. Captain Garrison took her chair. "Navigation. Prepare for departure." "Course plotted and ready, Captain," Jack responded, the ship's navigation array feeling like an extension of his own thoughts. As the countdown began and the massive engines powered up, Jack felt a profound sense of rightness. The bullies had tried to drown him, to break him, to prove he didn't belong. Instead, they had set him on a path to the stars. The TSS venture lifted off in a roar of controlled power, rising through the atmosphere toward the endless frontier of space. Jack's enhanced mind merged with the ship's systems, guiding it with precision no ordinary human could match. He was exactly where he was meant to be, and he was just getting started.